I got 7 kids, 5 of them living here with me. The 5 that are living with me are the big twins, Brucey, and then baby twins, they're 8.
Rebecca has been living in Cairns hotel rooms with her family for more than 2 years.
I will need to come. You're gonna tell her here. It's not the same when you got your own place. Having a big family in a small room, there is a lot of noise. Hey, I'm always worried about noise. I'm always worried about complaints. I'm always worried about rubbish and things like that because we do have a big family.
The single mother is priced out of the private rental market and has been approved for social housing, but is stuck in limbo waiting for a 4-bedroom home. A not-for-profit organisation is supporting her to pay for the hotel.
We need bigger houses, we need more houses, and affordable ones too, especially for us who are single with a lot of children. We have to look for 2 jobs just to afford it, sometimes 3 jobs. Do we have time for it? Trying to balance everything. We don't.
The shortfall of what I would call subsidised housing is extremely severe. Research talks about 600,000 households who are suffering housing stress. So it's really where we have market failure and people cannot afford to rent property, and our role is to provide that subsidised housing for these people.
Charles Northcote is the CEO of BlueCHP Limited, a major community housing provider racing to build homes for families like Rebecca's.
This will be relatively protected in the afternoon, I would have thought, because the sun will be over the far side.
BlueCHP recently applied for funding from the Housing Australia Future Fund, a federal scheme aiming to assist in funding 40,000 social and affordable homes over 5 years. Social housing is government-subsidised long-term rental housing for people on very low incomes, while affordable housing is open to a broader range of people, including those on low to moderate incomes, and is managed mostly by not-for-profits in a similar way to the private rental market.
So we put in nearly 3,800 dwellings from Cairns all the way right round to Gawler in South Australia. And we had only success in 10% of those going forward.
The charity spent more than 2 years and $1 million on its applications.
In putting the tender forward, you're spending a lot of money on fees, consultants, and we were hoping to have obviously our highest success rate. When we didn't get that, obviously it's extremely disappointing because we put in high quality submissions.
Charles Northcote believes that money spent on unsuccessful applications would have been better invested directly in bricks and mortar.
So if you're not successful, that money's then written off, and as a charity it's not most probably the best use of our funds.
He says it's essential that the scheme provides clear assessment criteria in future rounds to help applicants submit more targeted projects.
The tender process was condensed into a very, very short space of time, and because it's new, I just don't think there was enough forethought given to what would win and what wouldn't. So I think in hindsight, better clarity would have been far more beneficial for us in terms of narrowing down the projects we would have put up for tender.
Federal Housing Minister Clare O'Neil says Housing Australia is working to improve the $10 billion scheme in future rounds.
We're really working closely with the sector at the moment to make sure that the future rounds of the HAFF are a bit more seamless from their perspective. But let's not make any mistake here. The sector absolutely love the Housing Australia Future Fund.
2 federal government programs, the Housing Australia Future Fund and the National Housing Accord, have accepted more than 13,700 homes in the first round. Of those, 4,220 are social and 9,522 are affordable dwellings, with a representation across each state and territory.
There is a lot of excitement in the sector for those that are working through contract negotiations to move to project delivery as quickly as they can and build these homes and see people move in and keys going indoors. Yeah, I love that idea.
Power Housing Australia is the peak body for the nation's biggest community housing providers. It wants the government to develop more specific assessment criteria for HAFF applications and argues it's crucial the fund grow in the future.
What that means for our providers is they can target the right projects in the right areas for the right people. So that may be in some areas seniors, in other areas that may be families or families fleeing domestic violence. We are calling for that fund to be doubled and quadrupled in the long term, enabling $2 billion per year of benefits from that fund to be invested in social and affordable housing.
I think it's a credit to the scheme that people are already talking about doubling, tripling, quadrupling. Our government is not there yet. We want to get houses on the ground. We want to deliver that $10 billion and we want to make it a success. One of the really good things about round one was it gave an opportunity for the housing sector and government to really flush out what are the type of financial models that will help us provide the best affordable and social housing for Australians. And I think we've got some really clear answers out of that. So my expectation is future rounds will be done faster and will be done more efficiently than what we saw with round one.
The Minister says future rounds will target specific cohorts of people.
What I want to see over the long term with Housing Australia is that we're making sure that we're accounting properly for key areas like First Nations housing, like women experiencing family and domestic violence, and in particular housing for people who would otherwise be at risk of homelessness.
Housing that can't come quick enough for the sector and hundreds of thousands of Australians.
So putting people in housing for me is the number one issue, and we will all benefit by that. I think it's critical as probably the most wealthy country per capita in the world. If we can't house our population, I think we really need to ask ourselves some serious questions.
I do have good and bad days. Just worrying about when, the time frame, how long we're going to be in the hotel.